Well, welcome again to our podcast. This is the legacy of your life wealth. And today I invite always good friends, clients, sometimes even family that has been with us for quite some time, that are folks who have lived out their life wealth in very intentional ways. And today I've got a great special guest, a good friend, James Burks, here with me today. I met James originally at a group that we attended together, right, James? The Dream Builders in Claremont, Florida. And James was the CEO of Synerger Irrigation, and we became great friends in that process. And I know we rode some motorcycles together and went to some fine establishments in
some quality miles.
Some quality miles together, absolutely. And so, James, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate that, and thank you for being able to pick your brain on a little bit of the way you look at your life and your wealth and your legacy and your kids and your impact and these transitions, life transitions that you have gone through. You know, I've never asked you, when I started talking with you or visiting with you at Synerger and talking around your business succession, you already was the CEO of the company. But tell me a little bit about your journey up to the CEO position.
It would probably need to go back to creating a love. I grew up as a kid in West Texas, very close and ingrained in an agricultural community. And seeing the way of life that was, agriculture wasn't a way of making a living. It was truly a way of life that families, just every business was a family business, and it was very much a way of life. My friends were raised up in that business, in that profession, and I just fell in love with it. And so I knew that that's what I was going to do. And we made my family made a move to Nebraska and ended up going through with the education and an agricultural degree from the University of Nebraska. Go Big Red. But from that, I went right into a job that was involved in agricultural irrigation. I always thought I was going to be a livestock guy, but by the grace of God, that industry wasn't very good, and so it steered me in a little bit different direction. But got into that with a company based in California and stayed with that organization for 13 years. And that just such a great foundation of learning that industry, the agricultural irrigation industry, making some great connections. I basically covered almost every state that was west of the Mississippi, and that was probably, I would cover about everything, and even up in the Northeast, everything north of the Mason-Dixon in the eastern part of the U.S. So I just met a lot of great people, and that just continued to cultivate that love and just entrench me more and more in that industry. And I stayed with that organization for 13 years, and just part of those connections, I just met some fantastic people that founded Synerger Irrigation, and primarily Andy and Mark Healy, just great people. And I'd have to share that when I was contemplating this move, I've always tried to stay with one company for as long as I can, and since really I graduated from college, I've had two real jobs, Waterman and Synerger. So when I called one of my old bosses at Waterman, and I said, I need to confide in you. I am looking at a potential move. And it just seemed like it was a good time. And it was such a confirmation through just a prayerful approach to the decision. And he said, James, you cannot find a more ethical group of people than those that have founded and built Synerger Irrigation. So that kind of made it a no-brainer for me. So I made the transition and started more. They were building a marketing department, so that was the premise that I moved over to the company for, and became their vice president of sales and marketing. And I served at that job for just a little over 10 years, and then in a strategic reorganization that we had, they did ask me to step up and fill the CEO and president's role. And at that point, it was interesting that I was really thinking that I was thinking about going from corporate work to ministry work. And we had a consultant that was working in the strategic planning for this transition that we made. And we had several breakfasts together before our major meetings on this strategic realignment. And we just prayerfully addressed everything. And he had called the day before and said, we need to probably talk before tomorrow's meeting. The president is stepping down, and you'll be asked to fill that role. And I had shared with him this movement in my heart that, I just feel like I may be leaving this. I said, well, we need to talk about that, because I would hate to see two people leave on the leadership team at the same time. And he said, I don't know that you're getting what I'm talking about. He said, ministry isn't behind a pulpit all the time. He said, there may be opportunities here. And so that just led into a very unique part of my life. It's definitely a major transition, God's fingerprints all over it for a long period of time. But I had asked the board, all, strongly, very ethical, strong believers, but just always, everybody walks, our sanctification journey's different, and everybody walks it out differently. And I just asked, I told them where my heart was and asked if we would be able to, we always recognized God's work in our business. And that just reflected the way we treated employees and customers, the general philosophies of the business, but we really never pointed directly. And so I just said I'd really like to find a way that we could point directly, and it took a while. There was definitely a feeling, and I think this is very common in a lot of people who run a business in a faith-based, biblically principled manner, but they may not point as directly. And I just felt like it was time that we did that. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about, praying before all of our employee meetings, we brought in things like marketplace chaplains to help service our employees. We would had great profit sharing programs. We cared deeply about the employees, looked after and wanted to make sure they were financially okay, from our health insurance programs and benefits, that we had, weight loss incentive programs, all things that cared for their health. And I said, well, we recognize that they're in this place more than any other place in their life. They spend more hours here. How can we help them with the hard issues? When they go home, there are problems with their families, If we can help deal with that in a really positive way, help take some weight off of their shoulders, give them, an ear to bend when they have these really critical parts of life, illnesses, things like that. And the chaplain program Marketplace Chaplains was just what we needed. And it helped us, again, to point to the source of our success and where our true blessings flowed, right?
Yeah, you got a very fascinating story in that you really dealt with the bringing of your faith and your business background together in a real pragmatic way. Yeah. Interesting way. I commend you for your boldness, even at the time that you were asked to step up as CEO to present that. And then living that out very pragmatically. I know I came to visit you at your office and could see very clearly that it was a family atmosphere. I think you had like 200 employees. How many was it? 100, 200?
Yeah, I believe during my tenure there, I think we probably maxed out around 285, 290, almost 300 employees.
Wow.
We may have even reached, with temporary employees, we might have went over the 300 mark. But
so taking this bold step and pointing directly, like you're a faith-based business and you ran that way, and you're bringing in more, I would say today, chaplain services that deals with faith and also obviously with emotional trauma that happens in families. Those chaplains are super helpful for that too. Has it worked? Did it work? Did you see a change in your culture, the demeanor of your employees? How would you say it worked for y'all?
To say that it fixed a problem would be a gross misstatement. The culture was good. I mean, the founders and the previous leadership had laid a great foundation. This just helped bolster that. And I think it's like anything else in your life. When you really invite God into it, things change.
Sure.
And not that he wasn't involved in it. It was just at a more, call it clandestine level or whatever. But it was kind of that, felt like we needed a church, separate church and state, But I think going back to that transition in my life where I was thinking about leaving and going into ministry, my faith was pretty compartmentalized. I mean, I would have to say that, I felt this clear thing on Sunday, but then on Monday you go back to business, right? And that just felt
weird.
It felt weird,
Yeah.
and I thought, this isn't the way it should be,
That's right.
And so I just felt that was, I think, where that calling to ministry came from. I'm so glad that Mark White, the consultant that we had in this strategic realignment, I mean, obviously a provision, right?
Sure.
That was not by mistake.
Yeah.
And through all the conversations that we had over breakfast and prior to meetings, that all just helped put the whole picture into perspective that, I can go into ministry, but I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah.
And made things clearer to, obviously, in my family. I've got some ministry work that I can do right there. It's you don't have to just do things on Sunday and then Monday through Saturday do something different. It just really, that was probably one of the most profound changes in my faith life that I've ever had.
This is a tough question I got for you because it's normally difficult for most folks, and different folks, different strokes, right, and do it different way. But we talk about LifeWealth, and I love what you did as far as your integration. So when we say LifeWealth, what does it mean? It means your time and talent and your treasure. And then we talk a lot about becoming proactive, if you would, or just becoming clear as to what the impact or legacy might look like for you. We really touch on the concept of purpose. What is your purpose? And then the big question is, how do we use our life wealth in order to fulfill our purpose and our drive? And you're here today because I've seen you do that, in a real way in your profession. You and I are part of a few groups together that really promotes this and teaches us, like C12 is a great organization that teaches guys like us how to do this and be bold in that process. But, I'm going to talk about your kids. As you think about your kids, right, and you CEO of a company, right, how have some of these lessons, life lessons, living out your purpose, if you would, even financial astuteness, have you had the opportunity to kind of communicate some of these over to your children in the way that they maybe handle money or think about their lives?
Yeah. Yes and no. I think yes, and that we do have those conversations. No, and that I think I'm better at talking to bankers, attorneys, professional people than I am with my own kids. It's just, and I think to some degree, the stakes are higher, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that feeling of responsibility and getting it right is more critical. So I think it makes it slightly more difficult. So I think with clarity, but when the opportunity presents itself, and I think you invite the Holy Spirit in, things work pretty well. Yeah. But with the kids, I think obviously actions speak louder than words, right? So I always feel like I'm falling way short, and that my flesh gets in the way of my spirit a lot of the times. But my kids are so graceful and gracious and respectful. I mean, I am truly blessed. My wife is the same way. So I just think it's staying intentional, like anything else we do. we see a mission, we see a vision, we keep trying, we fall, we stumble, but we just, keeping the eye on the prize, as Paul would encourage us to do. That we do the same thing. So, discussions regarding finances, I think so many great resources out there, Financial Peace University, and that's probably, with my kids being grown adults, that's an area that we speak about quite a bit, and they will come and ask questions about that. And I love it when the invitation's there, because I know they are a lot more receptive than if I bring the subject up. And so that's one of those opportunities. But using the foundational principles like that, Financial Peace University would use, that first off, have some type of budget, some way of saying and telling, am I living within my own means? Is my income, more than my expenses are? And even more importantly, adding the savings element to that, is that you've got to think of a savings, building equity in your life, financial equity in your life, as important as paying your bills. Obviously, that's going to be the last thing that gets paid out. You want to make sure that you take care of your debt obligations. But put some money away. But live within your means. When it comes to just the rudimentary, basic, and lodging and transportation. I'm not a pro-debt guy in any way. So just encouraging them to stay away from any debt as much as it's possible, to make sure that you're providing shelter for your family, modest shelter, and modest transportation to get you to and from work. And then, later in life, you're going to have some flexibility to improve on those things. But don't get in the habit right out of the gate to so many people are using credit as a leverage to get that, that good start.
And it sounds to me like your kids are doing that. They kind of, you've modeled that to them, and you're seeing that they are doing that as they learn from you, right?
Yeah, some. I hope my guidance has helped.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your honesty, because you're right. It's hard. It's hard to have a direct conversation with your children, but you're modeling it very well. Then also those moments when they come to dad, that how do I do this? How do I do that? Is very, very sweet, and embracing that and walking through, and the door is wide open at that time. So that's phenomenal. You made this big transition in life. You were CEO of this large company, right? Close to 300 employees. And then one day, I think you helped the company to sell to an outside buyer and made that transition. And then shortly thereafter, how long after that sale did you retire?
Stayed for 3 years. 3 years with the Hunter organization. Mm-hmm. A really good fit. Enjoyed every aspect of it. I felt like I had the best job in the world as the CEO, president of Seneca Irrigation. The team was fantastic, and just every day was pretty much a joy, And then the Hunter organization, we were, as a leadership group at Seneca, we did see that we were falling behind on a succession plan. I think that God's hand was all over it, because we already had relationships going with certain individuals. Culture was very, very important to us, so we looked at areas that we could maintain a very similar culture. Publicly held companies, we had several suitors there, great companies, but it just wasn't going to really allow our culture to continue. And we had worked with the Hunter organization on several research and development projects. We had developed some pressure regulation products for them, and just able to really see what's under the hood over there through that relationship. For about 12 years before we actually got into an acquisition discussion with them. So, I think Mark Ely and I were coming back from Portland, I think, or somewhere one evening on a plane, and the discussion came. I said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, I just don't know. I don't know who would be the best fit. And, tap on the shoulder always happens when God wants to get your attention. And Hunter came to mind. I said, I think there would be a good fit with the Hunter organization. He said, you think they'd be interested? I said, well, they've already expressed interest several occasions, and said, if we ever get to a point where we want to enter discussions, please give them a call. So we did, and about a year and a half later, the acquisition came through. But with that transition, I felt like in discussions with the Hunter group, saying, I think I could do this forever, because it was a great job. But as I loved being a part of their leadership team as well. They were a good organization. But things started shifting, and I think God always makes you a little uncomfortable when He wants you to think about a different transition. And it was some family things. My mom and dad were in Texas, and Dad was, we were seeing onsets of dementia, and that started to change very, very quickly. And so, again, it's just amazing that the provisions of God, His timing, were so perfect, and I didn't even see it. If we wouldn't have had the acquisition happen when it did, I don't think I would have been able to be released from my job like God did. And I signed a 4-year agreement with them. And I called Greg Hunter one evening, and I said, I'd like to visit with you about accelerating this, if at all possible. And he said, if you don't feel like you need to be where you're at, he said, we're not going to benefit from that as well. So we started discussions, and Hunter's board was very helpful in helping us, move forward with accelerating that 4-year program to a 3-year program. The provisions of my successor, all of that just really came into place with perfect timing. So I was able to leave that position. Mom and Dad was really struggling at that point, so I was able to get them relocated to Florida.
Wow.
And close by, I had 5 months with Dad where I could see him, pretty much daily, and just go by, just have a meal with him, just sit with him. And he passed away about 5 months after we were able to get him relocated. So,
wow.
So again, what great timing. I mean, if I would have just continued to stick that out and not try to just go with my heart and do what I felt like I needed to do, have the support of everybody around me, family, as well as the professional support.
Yeah, fantastic.
We would have missed that opportunity. So the transition went, I thought, it couldn't have been better.
So after your father passed and you got this whole life ahead of you, right? And as strategic as you've been with your company, I'm assuming you probably are that with yourself and your personal life. So, when working at a company in a leadership position, is pretty much laid out for you what your job description is. But when you retire, what is your job description? How did you find your job description in the next half of your life?
I really never thought about it as a job description, but as soon as you say that, I sat on the board of Iron Sharpens Iron. A friend of mine, C12 friend of mine, Brian Doyle, founded Iron Sharpens Iron in Connecticut, and he and his family had moved to Florida, and he was in our C12 group. You might have even met Brian, but we would have, so when he's moved to Jacksonville since, but we would meet over in Apopka at the Panera Bread at least once a month, and just a little iron sharpens iron. But he would share, he said, he would talk about the patriarchal transition, as we're starting to have grandkids. We have parents that need more support than they had in the past. So my mom lives just 10 minutes away from me, but he said, let's talk about this patriarchal transition. And I've had family members that their life changes they need somebody to step up and just help support them more. So that's all been a big part of it. So Brian was, definitely a big, having that relationship, that friendship, helped me see this new role as
Good.
my dad's passed away. He was he was the patriarch in the family, and my mom's always been the faith rock, and so but still having her support. But that, I think that's more the change. That and along with stewarding, you talk about LifeWealth. It's definitely not about finances as much as it is the experiences and the talents that God's given us through our life, and along with along with our treasures.
Sure.
So that the family and other opportunities to, I think the Lord had also pressed on my heart that He really didn't want me to take on another company directly, but He said just step aside and walk beside people that are carrying a load. And I know that a good friend, Larry Brown with Ethnos 360, was one of those men that had just we talked quite a bit, and we started projects together. That's the water filtration project where we're trying to develop. We've got a product design now, starting businesses that we can move that product in areas that will serve greater purposes, humanitarian purposes, along with for-profit business purposes. For-profit to help grow that ability to serve others in that capacity.
It sounds to me that your personal relationship with God, your faith, has been your compass. And you mentioned a few times in this conversation that you felt like the prompting or the leading of the Holy Spirit at that point in time is showing you what's next. You don't strike me as a person that came in knowing exactly how you're going to transition, but really being available to transition and be so very much available for family first, and then from there be available for friends and whatever God is calling you to do next, which is fantastic. So here's a big question I got for you. One of my final ones here is, how do you define, or have you ever thought about your legacy, and what would you want your legacy to be?
Clarify, I love the way you make it sound like I've been so obedient all my life. That's always been a struggle. Let's make that clear.
Sure. I've ridden a motorcycle behind you. I've seen you ignore the speed sign once or twice.
Oh, did we? But I think I saw a BMW fly past me one time.
That might have not been me.
But no, it's... I'm learning. I'm getting better at that, and I've never regretted ever stepping in and actually being obedient. But as far as a legacy goes, I think it kind of gets down to, we talk about maybe personal mission statements and personal core values. I just hope that that's maybe something that gets passed on more than anything else. I would say that I've had several kind of mission statements, and that's changed along with some of these transitions. It was different when I was in a corporate world. And I think now it's definitely just become, the commonality in the Mark and Matthew and Luke Gospels that, just love God with all my heart, my mind, my soul, my spirit, and then again love others, which just parlays and transitions right in and is reflective of core values of truth. I want my kids and those around me to recognize where a good source of absolute truth, and the only place I've ever found is God's Word. The only thing that's consistent. There used to be a phrase, where it was a trustworthy news source. Mm-hmm. I don't know that actually exists anymore.
You're right.
Trustworthy news is kind of an oxymoron.
Sure.
But that they do, there is a place that they can go and find the absolute truth, which leads right into love. That the truth and love be kind of the hierarchy, the pillars of any other, just the things the way that they do life, the decisions that they make. and then roll right into generosity and gratitude.
You're starting to mention to me beautiful values that sounds to me like family values, and this culmination of what you're sharing are really, really good family values. James, it's you're touching on something that I think is very profound. If I think about the purpose of retirement as an example, what is the purpose of retirement? I think, James, you're living it out in a great way. I hear through your story, it might be the time of life when you are available with margin, wisdom, talents. It's interesting how you were mentioning about this water project, and I know lately we connected on that as well, but here's a guy that was the CEO of a irrigation company, so that this water project is moving forth into the next half of life, and it may be a slightly different context, but it appears to be very much, James, you're living the life that God has prepared you to live all along, and that you are a very faithful steward of your time and your talent and your treasure. And at least you're thinking about these things, you're thinking about them, you're thinking about how to use them. And I think you tapped into something that is the most amazing part of life at this phase, and that is that joy truly comes from being obedient, and it comes from really depositing your life in others and helping other people. Where the typical retirement model that we see advertised on the billboards is a very self-indulgent lifestyle. Come to this retirement community, come have fun. Some people have said some of these retirement communities are 55-year-olds on spring break, but it's the opposite.
That's great.
It's the opposite. What perceived to be joy and a lot of entertainment is really not fulfilling joy, but leading your life in this way, in family, like in your family being very important for you, as well as making a difference in people's lives, through talent, like I said, very important. So thank you for sharing that. It was very, very great to hear it. It was great to hear about your journey into becoming the CEO, the way that transition happened, some serious 2 or 3 taps of great people, right time, helping the company and the owners to be able to feel great about their business legacy as they made that transition. So I wish you well, my friend. I thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
And sharing your story with us, and thank you for being inspiration to me, who's maybe about 15 years behind you.
Two-way street, brother.
That's it. We all learn from each other. So again, thank you, James, for being here today. Thank you.